Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. And I'd like to also thank One-to-One Group for the opportunity to speak this morning. My comments will contain some forward-looking information which are detailed in our various risks on our filings. So the investment thesis behind NOVAGOLD is really centered around the Donlin Gold property. With 39 million ounces in resources, with the majority of that in reserves at 2.25 gram per ton, is a very one of the largest deposits that is located in the U.S. in Alaska, with extensive exploration potential. You have an asset that is defined on a small percentage of the land package, which I will speak to in a few slides. And we also have tremendous partnerships with two Native corporations who are heavily involved in all of our activities and have been for a very long time. So it's really important to take a look back at the company. It has been quite the journey. I have been with NOVAGOLD for 12 years. I have had the pleasure of working with our largest shareholder and chairman, Dr. Thomas Kaplan, and also with our president and CEO, Greg Lang. We have been the same team for the last 12 years. The company was reorganized back in 2012, really to focus on the Donlin Gold asset. At that time, what we did is we really divested of non-core assets, of which we sold the Galore Creek project to Newmont and divested other exploration assets to a company that's now named Trilogy. We also did a financing that really set the company up for the next 12 plus years because we haven't gone back to the market since 2012. We raised $330 million at that time, which allowed us to really execute on our strategy and not deviate from what we had set forth, further de-risking Donlin Gold and advancing the asset steadily with our partner, Barrick, who's a 50-50 owner on the property. So we're located in Alaska. Alaska is the second largest gold producing state in the US. It has a very healthy mining business. We're due west of Anchorage. We are also on private land, which has been very beneficial. It is a healthy mining business. First, oil and gas has been the primary driver for the economy, and then tourism and mining contributes heavily. As you can see, those highlighted in turquoise, those are the producing mines. We have Red Dog, Fort Knox, Pogo, Usibeli. You also have Kensington and Greens Creek. So these have all been operating for many years, and we are a very tight-knit group in Alaska and exchange regularly on mining practices and especially also sustainability, community involvement, and we all support each other quite extensively. So as I mentioned, we are on private land that was designated for mining activities in the early 1970s. And it was at the time of Nixon when the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act was put into effect to resolve the outstanding land claims and to open up development, oil and gas development on a north slope. And so as a result, Calista Corporation has the mineral rights, and they reserve that land through this settlement for mining purposes. TKC, which is the Kuskokwim Corporation, has the majority of the surface rights. And these two groups have been involved from day one. They have been involved in permitting at the government affairs level and also in community engagement. We have the LLC that's based in Anchorage. There's about 15 employees that worked day to day on the asset, and NOVAGOLD and Barrick Gold support them on those efforts. And because it's the company to us, we spend an incredible amount of time in Alaska, and I support the sustainability team and the community engagement team quite readily. I'm in Alaska almost every month, and that's a key important part of what we do. And they have been terrific partners. So here you have the presidents of both corporations. and also some of their comments on the asset. This is one of the poorest regions in all of the US. Many would refer to it as third world conditions. Many of the homes don't have running water, so this would be a life-changing project for most of these. The other benefit in Alaska that we have is that through the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, 70% of the profits are shared amongst all 12 Native corporations. And so, for example, the Red Dog mine that is owned by Teck, they are also on private land and they have a partnership with NANA, but that is getting toward the end of its mine life. So the Native corporations are looking for that next development opportunity to really fill that need. Sustainability has always been a key part of all the activities that we do. With our Native corporation partners, we look at ways to do various monitoring, not just environmental monitoring, but water monitoring on the Kuskokwim River. Subsistence practices are key in that region, and so we work collaboratively to inform some of the data, as they were never able to really get proper data on the river for not just subsistence use, but for any development activities in the future. Over the last 12 years, we have really looked from a governance perspective at improving our practices as well. And now we have quite a significant amount of diversity on the board, not just gender, but ethnic diversity representing the people that we serve. We have a representative from one of the Native corporations that sits on our board, and we have 30% female representation as well. So we always look to improve upon our practices, and you'll see we filed our sustainability report typically around the month of April and continue to advance on our reporting metrics and try to have best practices for a development company of our size. So now just to go into some of the attributes as to what makes really Donlin Gold so unique in this industry. As our panelists spoke to earlier, there is definitely a need for new development project in the industry. And as you can see, if Donlin was in production today, it would produce over 1 million ounces a year, and it has a 27-year mine life, which compares very favorably to all of the other projects that you see on the list on the graph. And at 2.25 grams per ton, this is more than double the industry average, which allows us to maintain a low cost profile per ounce, which can sustain through many different gold cycles. Beyond that, as you can see on the diagram at the top, we have the ACMA and Lewis pit. That is where the 39 million ounces is contained. That represents 3 kilometers of an 8-kilometer gold mineralized belt. And the majority of the exploration has been done in the ACMA and Lewis pits. And so a lot of exploration potential lies. We see this as a generational mine that can be around for many, many decades. So we had our third quarter results about a month ago. And as you can see, we finished our activities on site. We had 80% local hire. We have people that always want to return to site. The main focus of activities at site this year were focused on the hydrogeology for the tailings dam certificate. This is the last remaining permits that we have to obtain to go forward. And we have the permits at the federal level for the tailings impoundment to be constructed. But in Alaska, to operate a tailings, you need state permits. And so that's the work that's involved. It's quite a lot of engineering and costs. And so we didn't want to advance those efforts until we were closer to a decision on further advancing toward updated feasibility and construction. And the community engagement, I just want to highlight, 6 years ago, we initiated a program called In It for the Long Haul. As you can appreciate, Alaska being so remote, all of these villages are fly in, fly out. Their only mode of transportation is the river, and it becomes an ice road in the winter that we also help maintain. So a lot of the waste have been there for decades and decades. So what we've done 6 years ago is we commenced removing waste. This is household hazardous waste. It can be refrigerators, stoves, light bulbs, oil, And these were items that were providing some threat to youth that were playing in those areas and in those villages. So this year alone, we were able to remove 200,000 pounds of waste from 20 different villages. And what this has done is that's created incredible partnerships with local groups that had previously been, to a certain extent, neutral or opposed to the Donlin Gold project, and have come forward in support. And so it's really created some incredible engagement opportunities for us, and we participate in this annually and fund it and really look to have this become sustainable. And as a result, those partnerships will ensure that that is able to continue on beyond what we can provide. I've even brought my children over the last 2 years to participate in those events, so it's great for them to see. So here's a list of all of our permits. The permitting activities were undertaken in 2012 after the feasibility study was updated. It's, as Randy mentioned in the panel earlier, permitting is a long undertaking in the US, and we had the expertise required with our partner Barrick to really advance efforts on this front, successfully working with the federal and the state agencies to be able to successfully obtain these permits. And so as you can see, in 2018, we obtained our EIS and Record of Decision. It was the first time that the US Army Corps of Engineers and the BLM issued a joint record of decision. So it was quite a feat for the Donlin Gold project and for the company. We have since obtained all of these state permits and are now working on finalizing the last remaining dam safety permit. So that's the majority of our third quarter activities. Beyond the site camp, we had continued permitting undertakings, and as you can see, we've had quite a bit of activity. On the right-hand side, you have a photo with representatives from Calista Corporation that are pictured here with Mary, who's wearing the red jacket. Mary's the Alaska representative in Washington, D.C. So the majority of the tribal council from Crooked Creek, which is the closest village to site, as well as the Native Corporation, Calista, all went to Washington, D.C. The president and CEO of Calista Corporation has been to Washington, D.C. on many occasions over the last 2 years to reiterate the importance of the Alaska Native Settlement Claims Act for the economic benefit and prosperity of their people. So having him speak first and foremost to those representatives of the Biden administration is very meaningful for us. And this was the first time that a tribal council from Alaska had been to Washington, D.C. And Mary was newly elected a year ago as the representative of Alaska, so the first female Native to be representative in Washington, D.C. And she used to work for Donlin Gold, and so we used to work together about 8 years ago. So that's great to see the progress on this front. And as we can see, all appeals have been unsuccessful, and we continue to support all the agencies in advancing efforts to maintain all the permits that we have in good standing. We have a strong treasury. As I mentioned, we did that financing 12 years ago. We have 130 million remaining. We received 25 million in July, which was the last payment from Newmont Mining for the sale of the Galore Creek mine. We would have sufficient cash on hand to sustain us for the next 3+ years, at which time, when a construction decision is made, we would need to go back to the market for financing. This is one of the key reasons why our shareholders really like this company and like this investment. For the leverage to gold, you see it at different prices here. It provides really exposure, higher levered exposure to gold for our shareholders. And as you can see, we've had really steady, large institutional shareholders for the last 10 years. Many of these have been invested a very long time with us. The Fidelity position, the majority of that is in Will Danoff's Contra Fund. Then we have John Paulson that owns us. We're held in many pockets at BlackRock. First Eagle is out of New York. They've held us for a very long time. We were their first development company that they owned. And the Saudi PIF are the new newer investors. They came in looking at project financing and then bought 17 million shares in the open market. So we have tremendous support. We trade mainly on the New York Stock Exchange, also have a listing in TSX. We are liquid. We have an average of 1.5 million shares traded daily. So upcoming catalysts to wrap this up, we have worked steadily with Barrick on trade-off studies and on comprehensive work that was completed and reviewed. Both companies were in Alaska about a month ago to review all of this work. Mark Bristow was also there. And to look at the next steps, we are now in discussions for the work plan and budget for the next few years and look forward to providing an update. I'm also here if anybody has questions or wants to meet with me. I'll be here until 4:30 today. Thank you very much.